It all started with a quiet neighborhood and a little boy's therapy equipment set up in the front yard, a few soft mats, some sensory toys, and a small swing, all meant to help him through daily exercises. But not everyone saw it that way. One neighbor, known by locals as the HOA Karen, decided she'd had enough. She complained, argued, and left nasty notes. But what happened next crossed every line. In the middle of the night, security footage captured something chilling: someone sneaking up to the front yard with a can of gasoline. At first, no one could believe it. A fire broke out, burning the child's equipment to ashes, leaving behind only melted plastic and charred grass. Neighbors were stunned and the family was devastated. But thanks to a home security system, the truth started to unfold. As the footage played back, the figure on camera became clearer. It wasn't just vandalism, it was arson. And the person caught in the act? Someone no one expected. What drove this woman to go so far? Was it really just about HOA rules, or was there something deeper behind her rage? The arrest shocked the whole community, and now the internet is weighing in. But trust me, that's only the beginning. What happened next took things to a whole new level. The woman on camera was none other than Cheryl, a longtime resident and self-appointed enforcer of HOA rules. Most neighbors knew her as Karen, the kind who wrote passive-aggressive letters about trash cans left out for 5 minutes too long or lawns not being trimmed to a standard. But no one thought she was capable of something like this. The family she targeted had just moved in a few months ago. Their son, Noah, is on the autism spectrum, and his daily therapy sessions were part of his healing process. The equipment wasn't flashy or loud. It was just a part of his routine. Still, Cheryl complained constantly, claiming it was bringing down the neighborhood's appearance. The parents tried everything, explaining, showing medical papers, even offering to move the setup to the backyard. But nothing satisfied Cheryl. Her tone grew more aggressive, and her visits more frequent. Then, just days before the fire, one of the family's security cameras picked up Cheryl pacing near the edge of their yard at night, muttering to herself. The police later revealed she had filed multiple complaints, none of which were valid. But instead of letting it go, she took matters into her own hands. What no one could figure out was, why now? Why escalate to something this serious? And what else was she hiding that hadn't yet come to light? After the fire, the neighborhood wasn't just shaken, it was divided. Some residents defended Cheryl, saying she was just frustrated or misunderstood. Others were outraged, pointing out that the family's security footage clearly showed her near the flames. The parents, heartbroken and still trying to replace what was lost, found themselves at the center of growing gossip. Suddenly, what should have been a safe, healing place for their son turned into a battlefield of whispered conversations and tense stares. As the investigation continued, more strange details surfaced. One neighbor came forward anonymously, saying Cheryl had once demanded they repaint their home because it clashed with community aesthetics. Another recalled how she tried to organize a petition to ban non-standard structures on lawns, including holiday decorations and apparently therapy equipment. These weren't just harmless quirks, this was a pattern. And now, with the arson charge looming, people were rethinking every interaction they'd ever had with her. Meanwhile, online forums picked up the story fast. On Reddit, the Entitled People subreddit was flooded with theories, screenshots, and even clips from the security video. Some users dug into Cheryl's background, discovering she'd been part of multiple HOAs and left each one under mysterious circumstances. The deeper people looked, the more unsettling it all became. But there was still one big question no one could answer. What was she really trying to destroy? As the days passed, the tension only grew. Cheryl kept her distance, but the whispers never stopped. The community was now a battleground. Everyone had their opinion, and no one seemed willing to back down. Some neighbors rallied behind the family, offering support, donations, and even emotional comfort for little Noah, who, despite everything, continued to go through his therapy sessions in the backyard, determined to heal. Others, however, sided with Cheryl, suggesting the parents were overreacting, and that maybe their equipment was more of an eyesore than they let on. The lines were drawn, and the divide between them grew deeper. Then came the night that everything would change. A second fire broke out in the neighborhood, just a few houses down. This time, though, it wasn't the therapy equipment. The family's security cameras were again scrutinized, but this time, the footage revealed something chilling. A shadowy figure had been seen near the second fire, someone who appeared familiar, but whose face was concealed. Was Cheryl working with an accomplice, or was she slipping deeper into madness, becoming more unpredictable and dangerous by the day? The mystery grew darker as more pieces fell into place. Cheryl's past seemed more checkered than anyone had realized, and it was becoming clear that the arson might be just the beginning of something far more sinister. The question now was, what would happen next? Would the truth finally come out, or would Cheryl continue to wreak havoc on the quiet neighborhood she'd once called home? The night after the second fire, the neighborhood was on edge. No one could sleep, and the feeling of dread hung over every corner. The police were still investigating, but something felt off, like they were chasing shadows. Then, an unexpected twist came out of nowhere. Cheryl, who had been eerily silent for days, suddenly reached out to the family. She called them, claiming she had information about the fires. The message was cryptic, but it hinted at something bigger than anyone realized. She said it wasn't just about the therapy equipment. In fact, Cheryl admitted, she wasn't the one responsible for the second fire, but someone else was watching, and they were far more dangerous than she was. This revelation sent shockwaves through the community. If Cheryl wasn't the one behind it, then who was? And why had she come forward now? Was it the last-ditch effort to shift the blame off herself, or was she trying to warn the family before things got worse? The parents didn't know who to trust. Cheryl's motives were still unclear, but there was one thing they couldn't ignore: the urgency in her voice. She promised them a shocking revelation at a location she wouldn't reveal over the phone. But the more they thought about it, the more questions arose. Was Cheryl finally coming clean, or was this just another part of her twisted game? Tension was rising, and everyone could feel it. Something bigger was about to unfold, and no one knew where it would lead. Would the family go to the meeting? Could they risk trusting the woman who'd burned their son's equipment? The clock was ticking, and the stakes were higher than ever. The family hesitated but ultimately decided they had no choice. They needed answers. That night, they met Cheryl at the old community park, a place that had once been a gathering spot but now felt abandoned and eerie under the dim streetlights. Cheryl was already there, her face shadowed by the dim glow, her body tense, as if she were constantly on alert. She motioned for them to come closer, her voice low and anxious. "It wasn't me," she repeated, her eyes darting around as though she feared being watched. "But I know who it is." Cheryl finally revealed the shocking truth. There was someone else, someone with a personal vendetta against the family. As it turned out, the real culprit was not just a random neighbor, but a former HOA board member, a man named Greg, who had been quietly harboring a deep resentment toward the family ever since they moved in. He had a long history of being obsessed with maintaining the perfect neighborhood, and when he saw the therapy equipment, he saw it as a threat to his idealized vision. Greg had set the fire to destroy not just the equipment, but to break the family's spirit. But just as Cheryl was about to reveal more, something unexpected happened. A figure appeared in the distance. The sound of footsteps grew louder as someone approached. It was Greg, standing there in the shadows, watching them. His eyes were cold and devoid of any emotion, as though he had already won. In that moment, everything clicked. The tension, the fires, and even Cheryl's strange behavior all made sense. Greg had been the mastermind all along. But then, in an unbelievable twist, Greg smirked and slowly walked away, almost like he was daring them to do something. He'd planned it all, orchestrated the chaos, and now, with Cheryl's confession, he had everything he needed to disappear from the spotlight. What no one knew was that Greg had quietly moved away that very night, leaving the family to deal with the aftermath alone, while he escaped without a trace. As the family stood there in shock, the truth hung in the air, leaving them to wonder how much of this had been planned from the very start, and who, in the end, would really pay the price for what had happened. The story wasn't over yet, not by a long shot, but for now, the mystery of Greg's escape left everyone questioning just how far he'd go to destroy everything in his path. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The police launched a full investigation into Greg's whereabouts, but it soon became clear he'd vanished without a trace. Cheryl, now fully exposed as a pawn in his plan, was left to face the consequences of her actions. While she wasn't directly responsible for the fires, her role in enabling Greg's obsession weighed heavily on her. The community, once divided, slowly began to heal, though it would never quite be the same. For the family, it was bittersweet. They managed to rebuild the therapy equipment with the support of kind-hearted neighbors who'd rally behind them. But the emotional scars remained. Noel continued his therapy, and though he didn't fully understand what had happened, he was stronger for it. The family had learned the hard way that the fight for what's right often comes with unexpected twists, and sometimes even the most unlikely people can be pushed to extremes. As for Cheryl, she eventually moved away. The HOA gave her a final warning after a series of complaints, but the damage was done. The neighborhood would remember her, but it was the resilience of the family, their ability to rise above the chaos, that truly defined the story. In the end, it wasn't just about therapy equipment, it was about reclaiming what had been stolen from them: peace.